All right, hey everybody! Welcome to the Holiday Show podcast. We are doing this in person. Finally, an in-person interview at WonderCon 2022. I almost said WonderCon 2020 with my good friend, Mr. Chris Sully, otherwise known by his adoring fans across the world as Sully. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really good.
It's good to see you, man.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and for those of you who have known are aware of our journey as a podcast, I may have talked about this in previous podcasts or on other people's podcasts, but I owe a lot to the creation of the Holiday Show podcast to Sully, because back in the day when he was doing the NerdFu Podcast, I had asked him for advice on I want to start a podcast, and do you have any resources that you can push my way?
Yeah. And
he was gracious enough to do it. And I've been, very thankful ever since that he was, took the time out. He sent me this long email, and whenever somebody asks me for advice, I just sort of add on to your email, whatever's on there.
Oh, beautiful!
Yeah, so it's like I pass on his knowledge to other people. So
we're gonna see it as an Amazon downloadable book one day soon. Somebody's gonna piece it all together and put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, brother.
Oh, absolutely. I really, really love podcasting. I'm probably approaching 500 episodes of podcasts across the last decade between the Funko Funkast, NerdFu Podcast. I'm now doing movie retakes with my brother, and anytime anybody asks, I try to pass on any knowledge I have, because it can be a little scary when you get started. And if I've gone through all the problems you can possibly have, well, here's everything I've learned, go for it,
Right. And we'll talk about all of that. But before we do that, all our heroes have origin stories.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you talk about how, little Sully was, maybe 11-year-old Sully, I guess you grew up in Texas, and,
Yep.
What were you into as a kid, pop culture-wise?
My earliest memories are movies and video games as a kid. Of course, the videos were like Nintendo and Atari 2600 back in the day. We didn't have the nice stuff for many years, but my dad was big into movies. So that was Friday, Saturday night. We were going to the movies. On the weekends, we would go load up on a batch of VHS tapes at our local rental store and spend the weekend watching movies together. And so that shaped my pop culture journey right from the beginning, with Ghostbusters and Back to the Future and Goonies and all those great 80s films that really started me down that path. And then I even worked at video stores for like 5 years through high school and college, and then just continued to build on that. And that all my pop culture love started there, and it just continued to build out and go into everything you can imagine, video games and more movies and books and music, and it just kept expanding.
Yeah. Did you work at a Blockbuster? Is that one of the ones?
No, I didn't. That was the one place I didn't work. My brother worked there. I worked at a place called Video Central that became Hollywood Video.
Oh, yeah.
And then in college, I worked for Hastings. It was book, music, and video in different college towns. And I managed the video department.
Wow. What was your favorite games when you're on the Atari?
Atari 2600. I really liked Pitfall. Believe it or not, bowling. My dad was a almost professional bowler, but he couldn't get a 300 on the 2600.
Oh, wow.
So we were always playing that, trying to get there. Yar's Revenge, Asteroids.
That's the fly, right?
Yeah, where you had to go across the screen and go into that. Yeah,
I remember that.
Those were the big ones, and they're all very sad when you look back at them now. But we had a blast with
Yeah.
it. That's all that mattered.
Yeah, I think although those games don't have the video quality of today's games, I bet you if we fired it up, we'd probably spend hours just having fun, just playing it. Because
every once in a while, I'll try retro gaming, and I can last about a half hour before I'm okay. Well, that was good and nostalgic, and back onto Halo.
Well, Well, I guess for me, I loved like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo systems, because they had a bunch of games on there that I enjoyed playing. Even though they're like 8 or 16-bit, still the gameplay was still pretty enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
and it's like I think one year on the Xbox I got Madden or something like that, And oh my God, it was so complicated.
Yeah.
It took away from the fun factor for me.
I've had one of the Elite controllers for the Xbox for the last few years, and it has the back paddles added.
Oh, okay.
In addition to all the buttons that we've added over the years. And it's taken me 2 years to finally start using the paddles because my brain just was not built like that. We started with, I had literally Pong. With the one spin dial as a kid.
Okay.
And then you had the joystick with one button for the 2600 for a while. Built up from there.
Yeah. So what was the first sort of Comic Con convention that you ever attended?
You know, believe it or not, when I was in high school, my brother got into comic books before I did by a long shot. And I remember when Spawn #1 came out, I was like 18 or 19, and he had just gotten old enough to really get it. He was like 16, and he hadn't driven yet. And he needed to go to one of the cons. And I was like, I'll take you. Let's go hang out. You know, I had no idea what I was getting into. We went to the con, and he went and met Todd McFarlane, who was at the convention, and got him to sign his Spawn #1. And so I was like, well, I'll buy one of these too, because, you know, maybe it'll be an investment. I lost it a long time ago, sadly. But to complete that circle, I went to many, many cons over the year. A couple of years ago, right before COVID, they did a 20th anniversary of Image, and I won the autograph session, and I got to go meet Todd McFarlane, and I told him that story. I was like, come full circle. I started all those years ago with you, and now here I am on the other side of this journey, getting to meet you again. He really liked the story. Yeah.
Wow. And so, you know, as your fandom grew for all the different pop culture, you know, sort of properties, what made you decide to eventually sort of form NerdFu? Because, I mean, for a lot of us, that was an integral part of, you know, such... you know, keeping us up to date on a lot of information. So it was a really good, you know, resource for a lot of us out there, you know. Oh,
thanks. Yeah, for anybody who didn't listen, we did over 230 episodes of the NerdFu podcast, I think, across 4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I had known Steve, my partner on NerdFu, for a few years. We worked together at a printing company, and we would go to movie premieres and stuff together. Like I remember we went to one of the Fast and Furious films. We were both big fans. We got to go to this. And that kind of became our friendship when we got to know each other a bit and bonded over those fandoms. And then one day he calls me up out of the blue and he's like, hey, you ever any interest in going to Comic-Con? And I was like, oh, you mean like San Diego? I knew almost nothing about it. I had only been to that one convention all those years prior to take my brother and had never been to a local convention. And I was like, well, yeah, I'd love to go, but I'm real busy with work and I don't really have time to do all the research. Can you figure out what it takes to go? And then we'll do it. And he did. And that was right before it got impossible to buy tickets.
Oh, wow.
This was 2012.
Got it, yeah.
It was still possible to log in general sale and really have a chance.
I remember those days.
Yeah. We only got Thursday and Sunday. We didn't get in Friday and Saturday. Okay. But it turned out to be the perfect scenario for us. So we flew in. We did Thursday panels and stuff. Friday and Saturday we did Gas Lamp and that corner parking lot that was always over there. They had the pop-up stuff with Walking Dead and all those. We did that. We did the Walking Dead experience where we did the run-through and we got the free comic book. We did all that. And while we were standing in line on Sunday to try and get into the Supernatural panel with all the Doctor Who fans, which was a thing for many years, we were talking, and a guy that we got to be line buddies with, he turned to us and he goes, y'all should really podcast, because we were just going back and forth and playing our own trivia and stuff. And we're like, really, you think so? And he goes, yeah, I have a podcast. Whatever you do, don't listen to it. It's horrible. And I think you guys would be way better at it. So we listened to his podcast after he warned us not to, and he said our name on the podcast, and that gave me this spark. And I was like, oh my God, I really love the fact that we got to meet this guy, and now I get to listen to him and his content, and he said our name. Like, it's so awesome. Like, I want to do more of this. And then right around that time, Tony from Crazy for Comic-Con did an open thing for his blog and said, did anybody have their first Comic-Con experience recently? Would you like to write about it for the blog? And I had done some blogs before. So I was like, I'll write about it. So I wrote, and he, okay, you need to trim that down about 1/3 of what you wrote, because I wrote too much, and put it on the site. But all of that, he put it out there, and I got to read it and see people's reactions, and then hearing about you should do a podcast. Steve and I sat down and said, let's do this thing. And we recorded our first episode and posted it, I think it was April 1st, 2013, when we finally got around to it. We realized that was a bad idea to start on April Fools, and then just started going. We did the website. Right. We started doing all the links for to get a little money. We would go to all the cons and just loved podcasting. We did once a week and hardly missed a week over the first 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you consider the podcast that, initially I know it's like a hobby and a labor of love, but I mean, you mentioned links, meaning affiliate links.
Yeah.
I mean, you already had in mind that you sort of wanted to sort of monetize and maybe turn it into a little business.
Absolutely. Well, from day one, Steve was really the one that pushed, let's do a podcast. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be into podcasting. I don't like the sound of my voice. Ironically, I've done so much of this now, right? But I was like, well, if we're going to do it, let's do a business. Let's go. We got an LLC. I started doing the research. We built a website, which is still up and running. It just doesn't look so good because we don't update it. Yeah. We built Facebook pages, Instagram, Twitter. We really started going at it. And there was a point where we were starting to make enough income that it was paying for all of our con trips, airfare, hotels, everything, and making a little extra that we were using to funnel back into ads to continue to grow our presence on those social channels. Mm-hmm. And it would have been great for us, but overnight, Facebook and Twitter both seemed to change their algorithms, and we went from getting all these hits to nothing. So we had to kind of, rejigger, but we were still enjoying what we did more than anything else. And we're like, even if it doesn't make money, we'll keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, was that sort of business mindset always within you, or is that something that you sort of learned along the way?
It's been a long time dream of mine since I got out of college. I went to business school. Okay. I have a business degree, and I always wanted to be my own boss and run my own business, but I've never had either the resources or the gumption to just go all out and get a giant loan and start a business, because I've honestly been a little scared. Yeah. But I've learned so much along the way by working for others and doing NerdFu. Now I'm on my own and I'm trying to build my brand, Nerds Unite, into its own business. And I'm still teetering on the edge of, do I go really big or do I slowly build this thing? Yeah. But that's the dream one day, is to completely be my own boss, even if it's just me and that's it, or whether I have a team. Either way, I think I'd be very happy.
So before we talk about your own personal brand that you're building right now, obviously, we have to talk about your days, doing Funko. Yeah. So, I mean, talk to me about how obviously you're a Funko Fanatic to begin with, right? Yeah. So, I mean, how did that relationship begin with? And talk about how the challenges that you had, moving from Texas to their HQ in Washington.
Oh, yeah. I've been a fanatic since 2011. I started collecting. I bought a Hermie for my wife, a Hermie Pop, and it was sitting there on the shelf for a long time, and I kept looking at it going, I really dig that style. What else do they make? And I got on the computer, and before I knew it, I found Sully was made. And I was like, well, this started my Sully collection. So I started buying those, and before I knew it, 4 boxes a day were arriving at the house for all these. I remember getting the first Motu, the first Rocky, all these sets of things, Goonies, that I grew up on as a kid with those huge pop culture fandoms. Yeah. And I just kept adding and adding and adding, and slowly the sports collectibles that I had started to disappear, and the Pops started to take over my room. I see. Before I knew it, that room was full. And so we were doing NerdFu, and that became a thing too. It's like, okay, we're reporting on pop culture, and collectibles and Funkos just starting to kick off, just really starting to hit with a wider audience. We went to Fun Days. I would go by to the comic book store and buy new stuff on Wednesdays, and we would do we called them a pre-podcast Periscope back in the Periscope days. Oh, yeah. And I would show off the boxes and talk about the Pops and unbox them. And we started to become kind of a resource for people who were new to collecting to come by and find out about Funko collecting. Mm-hmm. I never thought in a million years I'd work for them. We used to make jokes on our NerdFu podcast about, well, one day when I go to Funko, blah, 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 had no idea that it would ever happen. Right. And then I was doing social media for a Fortune 100 company. I'd already kind of transitioned my day job over to learning more about social media, and working for a big company like that, I learned a lot. Yeah. A lot about how not to waste money, but that's a different story. But doing that and realizing, I like doing social media, but I don't want to do it for this kind of company. And I found myself sitting there all the time going, you know what, if I could do social media for a company where people really like the product, I think that would be a win. And sadly, around that time, I got laid off from Reliant. So I had this window of opportunity, and I thought, okay, I can go to work for somebody else or do my own thing. And I'm going to laser focus on NerdFu for a while. But I did have the list of companies that I wanted to work for over on the side. And there was one name on the list, no lie. It was just Funko. Oh, wow. I hadn't even considered. Every time I would look at a job listing for anybody else, I was like, I can't do it. My heart's not in it. So fast forward to 8 months. I'd given myself 9 months to make NerdFu where we were making enough money for me to stay with that. or go take a job.
Yeah.
And a marketing position came up at Funko.
Oh, wow.
And so I reached out to Cameron, who I had met at all the conventions and became a coworker and my boss at one point. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I know we barely know each other. We just I talk to you each time. But anyway, you would consider me for the job and put my name in the hat. He said, right now, I'll go talk to the boss. He walked in, told his boss. A week later, I was on a plane to Seattle. I interviewed. They offered me the job the next day. And 6 weeks later, I sold my house, packed up everything, including this giant collection to take back to the place it came from, wow. And moved up to Seattle, having no friends or family there, really one cousin and a few people that I knew from the company, but it was worth that was one of those giant leaps of faith. And kind of the leap of faith I never took for my own business. I was like, this is that opportunity. Mm-hmm. I cannot pass it up. Yeah. So I went, and honestly, it was like the best experience of my life. It was so great. So how did that experience sort of help build, your new brand? You're working on Nerds Unite right now. So, yeah. I mean, how did that, sort of galvanize, that Sully, from, NerdFu all the way through, working at Funko? How did it sort of like, obviously it gave you the confidence to start your own thing after you got laid off. So, I mean, talk to me, what was in your mind when you got laid off? I mean, obviously you're sad to probably lose that job, but sure. At the same time, were you excited like, hey, there's a new chapter that is going to start for me, Yeah, I mean, sadly, it's going to sound bad, and a lot of people who will listen will be like, "This guy's got laid off how many times?" It sounds bad. It's just been an unfortunate series of events. I think I've always been a good employee, but you'd have to ask others. Yeah. But this going to Funko and being there, I always had this what if the other shoe drops sort of mentality. Okay. Nothing lasts forever. Anytime you take a new job, eventually it changes. And I was like, what am I going to do if this somehow ends? I want to have a backup plan. And NerdFu had started to kind of trail off at that point because Steve got really busy with his life and a new fiance and trying to find a place to live. And all these things were going on for both of us. And it was tough with me traveling. So we kind of let that go by the wayside. And I was like, what can I do next? And we had started while I was at Funko to do some streaming. We would go out on Twitch to do unboxings, and I would play some video games and stuff with the audience. We'd give away prizes, and we would get a lot of interaction from it. And I really enjoyed that immediate. I love podcasting, but you don't get the immediate response when you're doing a live stream. You're reading those comments from people and being able to react. And I found that I'm pretty good at doing that on the fly.
Yeah, you are. I mean, I've watched your Twitch stream, a few times, and I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
This guy's a natural. I mean, the way you interact with your fans, and I remember that one time, I think Karma may have shouted out Comic-Con Fit. So that was kind of cool when you brought that up, and I was like, whoa, wow, that was
absolutely
pretty awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of things at once, but I'm good at that. I seem to thrive in it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It just turns out that's a skill I have, Yeah. But while I was there and I realized that, I was like, well, what if I just started dabbling in streaming? So I got a rig, thank God, before COVID and the prices for everything jumped up. Mm-hmm. I got a rig custom made for streaming, not to stream games off there, but just as a streaming unit. I do everything off consoles. So I focused on the hardware, was on the actual getting the data out through OBS and to Twitch and stuff. And I started teaching myself the graphics that needed to go with that and learning all the ins and outs. Funko kind of was giving me a master's degree in it, and then I could take that home. It was on their dime to learn about it, but then take it home. And so I did stream a few times, and I was like, hey, you know what? While working at Funko, I was like, if I can do this, maybe I'll stream 2 days a week in the evenings just to hang out with fans and have a good time. Right after that, we got so busy at Funko. I think I did 21 cons in 1 year, something crazy like that, cons and appearances. And I was like, I can't do it. And people kept asking me at the shows, like, hey, you going to do your streaming again? We really enjoyed being there for that. Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe. Well, comes the time of COVID, unfortunately, and Funko laid off near 40%, between 35 and 40% of their entire workforce, including almost the entire marketing department. I think Hillary was the only one left from our team that got to stay. And God bless, I'm glad she did. It's a good, close personal friend, and I'm glad she had that. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? I can sit around and be sorry for myself, or I can see this as an opportunity. I think everything happens for a reason. How do I flip the switch? Oh, yeah, the streaming thing. I already have this ready. There's a computer right there. I can still interact with people. So not only did I start doing my own streaming, but I'm still friendly with Funko at the time. And I think they, in some ways, they probably felt bad that a lot of people were put out on their butts. Yeah. So I reached out and said, hey, can I do some live streaming for you guys for these cons? Because no one else really had the setup or the ability to do it from home, and I did. And they graciously said yes. And so we negotiated a little deal, and they let me do some streams. And as part of the deal, I said, can I advertise my personal streams while doing this? And they said yes.
Wow, there you go.
That was the money right there. The money they paid me was nice, but that was the marketing dollars involved with a huge billion-dollar company like Funko, allowing me to be in front of the camera for an hour and promote it. That was what I was really after, and it worked. Shortly after those streams, my streams were bringing in 300 to 400 people at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, which if you look at the big professional streamers, the partnered streamers, that's on the low end still, but that's sustainable numbers that can make a living. So anyway, long story short, I continued to stream. I've now gone over 2,000 hours streaming on Twitch. I had already done several months on Mixer before that platform shut down. I just had a few people, or one just surpassed 2,000 hours watching me stream, which is insane to me that she's been that supportive the whole way through, but it's awesome. And I have learned so much more. And this has happened every time I've transitioned in the world from one job to the next. I've started focusing on art and NFTs, and I've learned so much about streaming that now people, in the way they came to me for podcasting before, are coming to me for streaming. And I'm like, I'll do whatever I can to help you get launched. Wow. And I'll raid over to your channel to bring my audience to yours and whatever, because I'm all about, my motto is Nerds Unite, and I don't just say it. That's my life. When I'm walking around the show talking to people, I'm like, hey, can we work together? I'm not asking you to pay me. I want to help you, and I want to help me. Let's just do something together.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, and it's served me well over the years, and I think that's my calling. So I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes it's all about what kind of services you can provide for other people.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just about, you know, the bottom line all the time. You know, because I think in the long run that'll serve you. I mean, not only are you serving an audience and people out there, but you're also serving yourself at the end, because, you know, for whatever reason, they'll come back and recommend you for other things, or you know, they'll help you. You know, if you're networking, they'll help you. You know, with something else that you need help with. Yeah. You know, so I think the return is so much more valuable than the upfront, you know, monetary gains you might gain for the short term.
I tell you, when I really realized it was 2 years ago, in November, which is traditionally when they do their big charity event for Extra Life. I was on my stream the very first week in November, and I was talking about, next year I think I should do Extra Life, because somebody mentioned it, which is a game fundraising to raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And everybody's like, why wait till next year? I was like, well, the big event is in like 3 weeks. We really wouldn't have time. And my whole crew, the Nerds Unite followers that come by the stream, was like, we'll help you. What does it take? So we started on stream talking about it. Come 3 weeks later, I'm doing a 24-hour stream. We've already raised thousands and thousands of dollars. We do the stream I did 24 hours with some friends. I would hand off to them so I could get a break here and there. Yeah. By December 31st, so 7 weeks later, we had raised $49,000 for Extra Life. Wow. And the majority of that came from me reaching out to contacts in the industry and going, hey, haven't talked to you in a while. I'm not hitting you up for something personal. We're doing this charity stream. Can you give me some stuff to give away or auction off? And I got stuff from Mike Becker from Funko. I got stuff from Turtle Beach. I got stuff from Marvel. The list goes on and on and on, because I knew these people at all these different companies and kept none of it for myself. I did some artwork and auctioned that off too, but that raised that $49,000. Parlayed that. The next year we did the same thing. We raised $66,500. And here we are again in 2022. We're going to do it and hopefully blow the doors off $100,000 by leveraging those friendships for the good of the children.
Right, there you go.
And that, to me, even if I don't make that much money in a year, look what good we have done for kids and their families.
Right. You know, it's all about that why sometimes. You know, once you get your mission, your personal mission statement out there, and it sort of drives your ability to sort of, you know, help other people. Yeah. And at the end, it'll be helping you, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now my income's not that great. But if I keep plugging along and I keep doing these things, as long as I can have a roof over my head and get some nice meals and go to the cons, I'm golden. That's all I'm looking for, really.
Nice. Yeah, we'll definitely do a recap on, because there's certain topics and points that you brought up with it. I think our audience will, you know, sort of, you know, those gold nuggets of information that you've been dropping. So yeah. But you mentioned artwork and you mentioned NFTs. We talked about that a little bit yesterday when we were just, you know, walking the floor. Why don't you sort of, you know, go into the artwork part of it, because, you know, as you're building your own brand, you're streaming, obviously you need to look presentable.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, talk to me how your thought process into sort of engaging the artistic side of your brain to sort of create the artwork for your Twitch stream and your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a kid, my mom was really big on us being well-rounded kids. We played sports, but she was always taking us to like art classes. I learned oil painting as a young kid, even though I wasn't great at it.
Okay.
Did drawing. She always encouraged us to draw, always was giving us tons of stuff to work with, and doodled, and I didn't do it again for a very long time. But as a kid, I picked up on it pretty quick, and I enjoyed it.
Did you get in trouble in school?
I always doodling, yeah, because I was, again, not to toot my own horn, but I was like in the they called it the SOAR program in school, like the gifted and talented or whatever, and I would finish the tests or whatever like in 10 minutes. I would try to race through them and then sit there for 50 and doodle. And so my mom always had plenty of stuff in my bag where I could doodle or whatever. As long as I got my work done, the teachers didn't care. But fast forward to the NerdFu days, and we're like, okay, we're going to put together a website and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I have a little bit of a graphics background. I did the art as a kid, and when I worked at the printing company, we had to work in Illustrator and whatnot to do the printing, and I would learn as much as I could. Well, let me take a stab at doing the website and creating our logo. And we went around with these ideas, and we finally landed on, let's go nostalgia, and we thought about that Kung Fu cartridge for the NES.
Yeah.
So I took that, instead of one guy, made it two, and I meticulously plotted all the little 8-bit squares by hand in Illustrator. Now I could do it in like an hour. It took me days because I didn't know what I was doing. But I laid all that out, made our logo, and so we didn't have to pay anybody for it. And then we would do giveaways, and at first it was just grab an image, take a photo, throw it up. And then I was like, let's make this look nicer. So I would start creating logos for each of our giveaways as a theme or whatever. And I got better and better at the graphics and was really enjoying it. So fast forward to me going out on my own and streaming, you need on-screen graphics to kind of separate yourself from everybody else. And you can download these packages, but then you're carbon copying somebody else. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I started doing my own stuff. And then I needed my own brand, and that's where Nerds Unite came from. It had been my motto for years, my mantra for all the podcasts and things I signed off on, always my thing for a decade. And so I was like, let me make that into a thing. So I have my Nerds Unite logo in orange and blue with my head in the middle and my giant orange cowboy hat, which there's a whole other story behind that. But I started making these different variants of the stickers and different logos. And then I transitioned that into, like, if there's a theme around the Super Bowl or something, I make the Nerds Unite logo looking different for that. If there's a con, I match their colors, so on and so on. Eventually I want that to be like a brand. Like I'm wearing a hat right now that has the Nerds Unite logo right there that looks like Fall Guys.
Yeah.
That I did myself, and then sold hats, made a limited run. I even gave them tags. They're all hand numbered. I have the AP on right now. It's numbered under the brim, but there's 1 through 100 are walking around at the show. People have them on and stuff.
Nice.
And so the more I got into that, the more I realized, like, I enjoy this. And then NFTs come along. Funko actually came and announced last January 2021 they were going to get into the NFT space. And I had just started learning about NFTs. And I'm like, oh my God, with all I know about Funko, and them getting into the space I want to know more about, I need to make that something I learn about. Well, instead of me just learning, why not me make that a focus of my stream sometimes? And I'll educate everyone who wants to know. So again, I've learned about something. I learned way too much about it. I get down deep. And I have now become, I think I'm the only one really, like the de facto trainer of anyone who wants to get into Funko NFTs. They'll come to my stream or they'll hit me up on Twitter. People out there will go, oh, you want to know about it? Hit Sully up. Sully can tell you all about it. Sully knows his stuff. And I've been learning and learning and learning. And I was like, well, if I'm learning about that, can I make my own? So I started making my own NFTs.
Yeah.
And it's all on the Nerds Unite brand. And I've been selling those to help supplement my income, but also as an education thing. And so now I've made friends in the NFT industry that make their own. I've got like a nice little circle of us that help each other out, another family, and learning more about my art and I'm learning After Effects and how to animate things. And I just love that journey of learning something new. So yet another degree, I call them, now I have a degree in NFTs.
Now, obviously there's sometimes controversy attached to the NFTs.
Yeah.
And concern, like, say, for the environment. Can you sort of give us a rundown, maybe like an NFT 101?
Yeah.
Just a quick, for the people out there who don't quite understand what it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people roll their eyes at them right now still. I heard a stat the other day that there's really only like 1 million people that are really into NFTs now. That number's going to grow. NFT stands for non-fungible token. Nobody really cares about that. Basically what it means is this is a digital thing that cannot be replicated. So if you want to go buy an NFT, you're going to get something, a digital thing that's going to go in your wallet, and it has a record to it on the blockchain. Everything since it's been created, where it's been, who's owned it, when it changed hands, blah, 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 with all these stats. There's no way that thing can be faked. It is a one of a kind. It started in the art world as I've created this piece. I don't want people to rip it off for the rest of my life. I want to put it out there as an NFT now. And here's the real kicker. If you're the designer of an NFT and you put it out in the world and sell it, every time it's sold for all of perpetuity, you get a cut back on that. So these artists that put stuff out, they get 6% back every time it changes hands. And some of these NFTs, like in the Bored Ape community, are selling for millions of dollars. So Bored Ape gets 6% of every sale that comes back. So what NFTs really are is building a brand. Either you're an artist and that's your brand, you're a company and you're building your brand, or you're extending your brand like Funko's doing right now, and Hot Wheels and all these other companies. For Bored Ape, that was a brand that had never existed. They got out there now, and it's become its own culture. People buy it. It's a status symbol. They wear their Bored Ape clothes. They put their Bored Ape on their Twitter account. It's a community. And it's really interesting the more I learn about it. But for me, I thought, hey, listening to a guy named Gary Vee. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Vee.
I'm familiar with Gary Vee.
Great promotional guy for NFTs, great motivational speaker. He can come across as rough, but he just puts it out there the way it is. And his big thing, aside from the NFTs, is you need to be your own boss. You don't have to have excuses. Another thing I needed to hear, just go. Yeah. Just do it. Push the button. Get out there.
Yeah, one thing I love about Gary Vee, otherwise known as Gary Vaynerchuk, is his sense of empowerment and self-awareness.
Yeah.
And it's infectious. You know, you listen to him a few times and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this now. You know, and one thing I like about him too is that, you know, he'll say it doesn't really matter how old you are. He'll you know, there's people that attend his you know, his meet and greets are like, you know, 40 or 50, and they say, you know, is it too old? Is it too late for me? But he'll say no. You know, it's like, you know, he'll tell a story. I think he was maybe his late 30s or 40s when he started. Yeah. So, you know,
I'm just slightly older than that. The gray's coming in, but I feel like more of a kid than ever.
Yeah.
But with the NFTs, there is a negative side to it, and for a lot of people, in that the effect on the environment. It uses a lot of computer power to keep a blockchain going. Because every time something changes hands or is minted or whatever, there's all these mathematical equations that have to go off to verify that activity. Well, there's a bunch of different blockchains. Ethereum, where those are on, is a bit of a hog. Yeah. It's old. Yeah. It's like the old rickety building, and it needs to be improved. Everything I'm doing with Funko and with my NFTs is over on the Wax blockchain, which is carbon neutral.
Okay.
They use very little energy on the blockchain because they built it with this in mind. They really built it for NFT gaming, which is a whole other category, in mind. And if there is any effect, carbon usage, they pay for the carbon offsets, which comes with its own debates. But I feel like that's the right choice.
So those fees, like those transactional fees, are those the gas fees that we hear about?
On the Ethereum blockchain, yes, which is very expensive. Like I'm working on a project with Echo Labs called Kitty Cats, and we are on the Ethereum blockchain for that. The retail price on the kitty cats will be $300 a piece. There's 10,000 unique kitty cats. The minting fee on that, the gas fee, could be anywhere from $50 to $150, depending on the day and the time. Wow. So you're not out $300, you could be out $450 on your investment in one of these. Whereas on the Wax blockchain, it comes down to pennies. When I will make and give away free NFTs to people for certain things. I gave away some on St. Patrick's Day. I gave away some when I reached 10,000 followers on Twitter. I'm just like, give me your wallet, I'll give it to you, because it's literal pennies to mint. Another reason why I like Wax better in some ways. Ethereum's where the big money is made. Bored Apes were on Ethereum. People are making millions of dollars off those things. Right now on Wax, that's not happening. Times could change. We don't know. We'll see what happens. But I love learning about all of it, and I wish that the people that do, if you're listening to this and you rolled your eyes or you turned your nose up when you heard NFTs, I urge you to, as Ted Lasso said when he was playing darts, be curious. Don't listen to a couple of people and make your decision. Go out there and actually talk to some folks that are involved in it, and ask a few friends and see what it's all about. And I think you'll find that there's a lot of fun to be had over there, and a lot of ability to support your favorite artists, your favorite companies. And for those of you who are collectors who are running out of space, like I have for the last decade, they don't take up any space in the real world. So that's beautiful.
I guess when it comes to crypto, and you know, my general impression is that I'm waiting for the day where it's sort of, instead of it always being speculative and it being so volatile, I want it to sort of go back to its original function as a form of currency.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, it needs to scale quickly and have, utility. So, but at the same time, the transaction speeds need to be at least parable or at least comparable to, credit card transactions. Because, otherwise, to me, it's a moot point. So I'm waiting till the day when one of the, blockchains get to that level.
Yeah.
So,
There's already a few credit cards now that tie to your wallets, and you can spend like real cash out in the world. So it's coming. It's right around the corner. And I think with anything that makes it into the mainstream, there is a bit of gamification that has to be applied, or else the general public won't really accept it.
Yeah.
The one of the forms of gamification in this is people are investing, and you hear these stories about people make millions off Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this stuff, the Bored Apes, but also literal games. The video game companies are all about to flip this switch and start having NFTs as a part of their culture. So my guess is Fortnite will end up doing it in a couple of years. Roadblocks, the kids, the games play that kind of looks like Minecraft, they have a thing in there called NFTs. It stands for not for trade. But there's a whole generation of kids that are coming up right now that are learning about it, and they know the term and they're not scared of it.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it and you're scared, don't be. Learn about it.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it and you think it's going to die overnight, you're wrong. I can tell you hands down right now. Gary Vee, again, this guy has predicted everything that's become big over the last 15 years. He can see around corners, and he's been preaching NFTs for 2.5 years now. I fully believe in the Church of Gary Vee in this case, and I'm going to follow what that guy says.
Yeah, cool. I guess we'll take a break and do a little bit of a thunder round, which is sort of our round of random questions. So I guess my first question is, what was the last song you sang in the shower?
Oh boy, I don't do that often, but I'm pretty sure it was Eminem.
Oh wow!
Probably like Lose Yourself.
Okay, wow.
I like to get hyped.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you take cold showers in the morning?
Not that hyped. No.
You should try it. It's pretty liberating sometimes.
I can only imagine. I don't know if maybe one day I'll give it a shot.
Now, you're passionate about your pizza, right?
Oh yes.
Now, what's like your ultimate, pizza, like the toppings that you'd like to put on there?
Pepperoni and jalapeno.
Okay.
Hands down.
Nice.
So good and spicy.
Now, do you have a favorite pizza spot?
Yes. My favorite pizza place in the world is in Portland, and it's called Blind Onion Pizza. And it is amazing.
What makes it unique and tasty for you?
They just have the best crust. It's the best consistency between crispy and a little bit of mushy, and their toppings are wonderful. Everything about it is just jives with my palate, It's so good. Tiny little hole in the wall place. I think it can seat maybe 12, 15 people.
Yeah.
Just the best. I love it. Anytime I get a chance to go to Portland, I'm going to Blind Onion, guaranteed.
Okay, you're taking a long road trip, and tell me what kind of music would be on your playlist.
I have an eclectic taste. I'll listen to anything from like Katy Perry and Ellie Goulding, all the way to Eminem, Dr. Dre, Snoop. But rock is my real passion. Okay. My all-time favorite band, Linkin Park.
Oh.
I got to see him 9 times live. Was going to see him a 10th. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And Rob Zombie.
Oh,
Linkin
wow.
Park, Rob Zombie, Korn. Put those on the top of my list.
All right. Yeah, I love singing. I try to sing anyway. Linkin Park at karaoke. I'm not always successful, but
that's a tough man to follow. Chester.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Chester.
R.I.P.
Let's see. An alien comes to visit, us, and you're the first person to encounter this alien. But you're too busy, trying to stream, and in the meantime, what do you do to keep him busy? Like, what 3 movies would you want to play for him, for this alien to hold him while you're streaming?
I think we'd want to educate him on all the aspects of Earth. I'd want to show him some comedy, some sci-fi, some drama. So my all-time favorite movie, Shawshank Redemption. We got to show him that to let him get it. That's also a little history lesson, I think, there. Sci-fi, I think we'd have to show him Back to the Future, because Back to the Future. And then we need just a straight comedy to let him know that, we can have some humor in our life. Maybe Friday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'd show them Friday.
All right.
They wouldn't know what to do with us after those 3 movies, but that's going to give you a little bit of everything we have to offer.
Yeah. On a serious note, if we did actually get visited by aliens, do you think they'd want to befriend us or conquer us?
I've seen too many movies to think it's going to go well. Yeah. I have a feeling even if they were nice, there would be some ulterior motive. Yeah. I think it'll go badly, especially when they find out how we don't even treat each other well. It could go badly.
Yeah. If you could have a meal with anybody from history or present day, who would it be with, and where would you take this person?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going all time. I think I'd want to have a meal with Stan Lee.
Uh-huh.
And where would I take him? I don't know what his favorite food is. I don't think I ever heard that in a meeting. I think I'd take him for some pizza at Blind Onion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think he'd dig that.
I think so. I mean, he lived in New York, so I'm sure pizza was definitely on his palate. Have you met Stanley?
I was fortunate enough to meet him 3 times.
Okay.
And I got a photo with him once, and it's one of my prized possessions. Just what a legend.
Yeah, one of my last memories of Stanley was, in the back of the San Diego Convention Center, the stairs.
Yeah.
He purposely walked up the stairs just to show how virile he was. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
The one time I got to meet him and hang out with him for a minute, there was at Dallas Comic-Con, they had a special smaller panel. It was $200, but you got guaranteed to ask Stan a question. You got a photo with Stan, and you got 2 signed comic books. It was no brainer at $200 for me. Yeah. But I had torn my Achilles, and I was in a cast.
I remember. Yeah.
So I go and I wait the whole time. It was like 150 people in this. All 148 went and got their photos, and then it was me and a gentleman who was in a wheelchair. Stan jumps off the stage. Jumps down off, it was 3-4 feet. Yeah. And everybody gasped. But again, to show how virile he still was. And he came over and he took a photo with the gentleman in the wheelchair and then a photo with me while standing. You don't see photos of Stan posing with anybody standing. Yeah. He was always sitting in a chair. Uh-huh. So I got a kind of a cool, unique moment because I tore my Achilles.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, if you had your own personal NFT, what would be its name? Oh, actually, let me change that to your own cryptocurrency.
Oh, my own crypto.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, that's a real challenge. I laugh at some of these names, and I just don't get it. I think it should be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what the core values of how all the crypto and what I would do, but I just loved anything to do with nerds, geeks, culture. I think it kind of softens it a little bit to talk about it that way, because usually we're kind of talking about ourselves, making fun of ourselves when we use those terms. So maybe New Coin, NU for Nerds Unite, or Nerd Coin. I don't know if one of those exists yet.
Yeah. Cool. What's your favorite color and why?
Red.
Yeah.
Even though all my brand is orange, my favorite color my whole life has been red.
Why is it that?
I went to high school, and my colors in high school were red and white. But there was also, when I was a kid, there was the comedy that I probably shouldn't have watched as a kid called The Man with One Red Shoe. And for some reason, I just really liked red shoes.
Okay.
So from junior high through today, I've always had a pair of red shoes. I don't always wear them, but I've got them in the closet.
Okay.
I just love a good pair of red shoes. I don't know what it is.
If I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it?
I would continue to do exactly what I'm doing today and use that as a way to infuse building the company into an actual brand. I would continue on Nerds Unite. Every dime would go into that.
What if I gave you $100?
$100?
Yeah.
I would probably have a nice meal and a beer.
Yeah. What would that nice meal entail?
Again, pizza or maybe a steak. And then for beer, I was lucky enough here at the hotel last night. I found one of my favorite beers in the world. No lie, it's called Sully from
what?
21st Amendment Brewery
Wow.
here in California. And
Okay.
I totally forget about it until I come to California. I saw it last night on tap and I got giddy. So I had a couple of too many of those.
Yeah.
It's just a great beer. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to like it when I first tried it at Disney of all places. I tried it there.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, I'm in love. Matter of fact, the guy who runs the company, he goes by Sully. I messaged him on Twitter, and we had a good laugh about it. He sent me, I have an Sully shirt and a koozie and some other stuff that he sent, I think some stickers. So Sully and I are partnered, kind of.
All right. If you could teleport to any place on Earth, where would you go?
Any place on Earth. Boy, that's a tough one. I've been to Italy and really loved it. The Colosseum. So maybe if I could go back and just visit the Coliseum for a few hours, I'd go back and do that. That'd be dope.
What is that? What does Coliseum resonate with you?
I'm not a history guy. When it comes to movies, I love Gladiator, of course. But there's something about the presence of something like that. The only thing I could liken it to for me was going to Fenway Park in Boston. There's a feel, a sense of history when you stand there, almost as if there's like spirits around you.
Okay.
Where you can really feel that is a special place, that it's a center part of a society, and it was. The Coliseum was the everything for them back then.
Yeah.
And you can just feel it. I don't know how to explain it. It is such a cool feeling.
Definitely a sense of grandeur. Huh?
Yeah. Oh, and it's actually smaller than I thought it would be.
Wow, really?
But it's still, when you're in there, the awe factor is wow.
Now, what word would you describe yourself with, and what word do you think other people would describe you with?
I describe myself as loyal.
Uh-huh.
I say this a lot, and I'm dead serious. My tombstone will read "loyal to a fault," because I just, once I'm into something, I'm into something forever, unless something bad happens. And how other people describe me, I think positive.
Positive.
Yeah, I get that from a lot of folks with the stream. I have plenty of my own down days and down times. But one thing I'm very, very keen on is when talking to other people, listening to them, eye contact, actually hearing their story about what it is they're into. I do talk about myself plenty. I think we all do.
Yeah.
But I love the origin story of another person. I love to get to know a new friend and find out what they're into, what they do for work. And often I'm looking at people, eye contact, I'm smiling. And it's just something I learned as a Southerner, I guess, and I can't stop it. When I'm by myself, I may not be smiling, but I see somebody else and connect, and I light up. It's my energy.
We mentioned Gary Vee earlier. He's big on emotional IQ, right?
Yes.
So I think you have that in spades for sure.
Oh, thank you. I would love to meet Gary Vee one day. I would just like to get that energy off him. There's certain people that emanate an energy that you cannot describe. And I've been around a few in my life, and it just comes out. I bet he has that in person.
Do you read a lot of books?
Sadly, I don't. I'm not well read at all. I don't. I can't focus long enough for that. I will read the same line 5 times. I did read Ready Player One from start to finish over the course of like 3 days because it just jived with me, and I loved every aspect of it. But I think I read that, Armada, and then I listened to Ready Player 2, the audiobook. That's the closest I've come to books over the last few years. Okay.
Well, then I'll sort of I'll change this question a little bit. Although you mentioned some movies earlier, what movie would best represent Sully?
The first thing that comes to mind, I know it's not a movie, so it's cheating, is Ted Lasso.
Okay.
Because that show is me. I am Ted Lasso. A very different path, but I am Ted Lasso. But I got to give you an answer, a movie. What movie represents me? That is so tough.
I'll accept the TV show because...
You take the TV show?
Yeah, I'll take the TV show.
If you, anybody listening, if you haven't watched Ted Lasso, you're doing yourself a disservice. It is the best thing made in the last decade. And again, with the positive, in a world where all of us have gone through so much over the last few years, and everybody has their story, whether they've shared it or not, we need an infusion of this positivity in our life, and that show delivers time and time again. And every time I watch an episode, and I've watched many multiple times, I come out of it feeling so much better about myself in the day. Just so motivational. And that Be Curious line floored me. Like, all this anger on the internet and Twitter and YouTube, if those people would just adopt Be Curious, the world would be a far better place overnight.
I guess I should subscribe to Apple TV, huh?
It's worth it just for that, but they have a lot of other great shows too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I guess we'll sort of transition to superhero shout-outs. Do you have some people you want to give a shout-out to that have helped you in the past or more recently?
Oh, wow. That is a long list.
Yeah.
Recently, big shout out to Priscilla, Valor and Vellum, a wonderful artist. You got to meet her and shared some photos with her from the con. She was gracious enough not only to donate so much of her time to me over the last few years and her Extra Life charity, but she offered for me to do a little pop-up at her booth here at WonderCon. Gave me some space, a 2-hour window to come over and sell some of my stickers and stuff. She didn't have to do it. She wouldn't take any money from me. I think that was awesome. Sure, you brought a few people to her booth, but they all knew her anyway.
Yeah.
It was just an awesome thing for her to do for me, so I appreciate that. Ming Chen comes to mind. Ming is one of the most giving people I've ever met in my life, and anything I shared in podcasting that has been passed on down started with Ming. That guy, I was on a panel with him at Comic Palooza almost a decade ago, and I sat on one end of a dozen people, and he sat on the other. And it wasn't until a year later I saw him somewhere else, and he knew my name and remembered that panel. We had no interaction, and he remembered it all and put his arm around me and said, "You want a podcast? Let's do something together."
Wow.
He was always giving to NerdFu. He's always been giving to me. I've been fortunate enough to hang around with him and call him a friend. He is a friend. I can text him right now, which I love, and ask him questions or find out what's going on. But I've podcasted with him multiple times, been to the Secret Stash. Like, he's just the coolest dude. And then there's so many people in the Twitch community that have given me a home over the last year, either supporters, other streamers. Jay Muse has rated me a few times on Twitch, a friend of Ming Chen's, Jay and Silent Bob. He's been amazing. But to all, I can't name all the names, but to all the people that have supported me and either bought my stickers or subscribed to my channel or whatever they've done, even if it was giving me one penny's worth of something on my stream, those are the folks that have supported me over the last 2 years. And while I can't give them individual names, that is the Nerds Unite community, and that has fueled me. So thank you, Nerds Unite community.
Awesome. Thank you, Nerds Unite. You've given us so much gold in this chat, and I sort of want to recap a little bit. I mean, my impression of you is someone who's able to, take negatives and turn them into positives. You're not only self-aware, but like I mentioned, your emotional IQ is high, so you're able to sort of connect. I think that's what helps you connect with a lot of other people so easily, and your positivity, like you said. And I think those are all good qualities for somebody to be resilient, and especially in these times. And I think a lot of the stuff that you said on this podcast can definitely help a lot of not only my audience, but a lot of other people out there. So, thank you for all that you've given us on this chat.
Yeah.
And I guess, lastly, for the last part of the podcast, I usually ask, what kind of advice you can give to a certain niche of the pop culture population, who are. If you were a writer, I'd ask you for writing advice, or if you're a comic book, artist, I'd ask you for comic book creating advice. But since you're a Twitch streamer, what's some sort of basic advice you can give to somebody who's thinking about starting their own Twitch stream?
I think it's similar to the podcasting, and honestly a lot of other things, and that is, and I'll steal from Chris Hardwick a little bit here, who is not only somebody I look up to greatly, but I had the chance to meet him, and he really drove this home without even saying anything. He had actions that led to this, or that enforced this, and that is, if you are truly into something and want to pursue it, whether it's podcasting, streaming, whatever, be authentic to yourself, do what's real, because if you're fake, people will pick up on that very quickly. Yeah. Nobody wants, there's plenty of people that follow that in the world, those sheep, unfortunately. For those of you who follow the people that you find authentic and real, I think you can tell very quickly. And push the button. That's what Chris Hardwick always says. Don't waste time developing too much. Don't overdevelop, overthink. And I still do this, so I have to fight it too. When you're going to do something, if you're going to stream, don't wait until you have all the right equipment and just get the equipment and go and start learning. Don't be afraid to fail. You will fail. You will have mistakes. It happens. And we learn from those mistakes. God knows, like when I told you about podcasting, I told you, here's all the things I did wrong. Yeah. I hope you don't have to go through them too. Right. I'm sure you've had your hiccups. It happens. Sure. But hopefully those were helpful to you. But do the thing. And don't worry if one person is listening or watching. Plenty of NerdFu Podcasts had like 100 listens. Mm-hmm. Didn't care. We had a good time doing it. We kept doing it. Don't expect overnight success. That is a lottery ticket, and it doesn't happen but 1 in a billion tries. You might have to grind at the thing you're doing for a month, a year, a decade. Might happen. So don't expect that overnight success. And don't burn bridges. Mm-hmm. If you don't like a relationship with somebody, don't dog them and kill it. Walk away from it. You'll be a better person for it, no matter how hard it is, and just go on your way. And I promise you'll get paid back in karma on that. Mm-hmm. Not Karma Savage, but karma on that.
Shout out to Karma.
Shout out to Second Union. Just be a person, be a real person. And then I just learned something the other day from Gary Vee again, because he is so motivational. And that is, when you put something out there, when you do something for someone else, don't expect anything in return. You are not owed anything in this life. So do unto others, for those of you who are religious and know that. Do for others, and don't expect things in return. It will come your way in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not from that person. That karma will come back on you. But don't try to hold that against somebody if they don't do something back. Everybody's going through their crap.
Yeah. And speaking of Gary Vee, I remember, I think in one of his books, he sort of retells this account when he was working at his dad's liquor store, or maybe it was during the wine TV days or something like that. Somebody called and wanted a certain type of wine or something like that, and I guess maybe he wanted to deliver it to that person personally, just because, I guess for some reason or another they didn't have it in stock. So once they got it, he personally delivered it to that person. So, and he didn't have to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think Gary Vee, if you take away his brashness and any initial, sort of like, this guy's too much on the nose or too much in your face. If you can get past that, there's definitely a lot of stuff that you can learn from him.
Yeah, he can come off as abrasive. Yeah. But I've learned that that's just straight shooter. Yeah. He doesn't want to waste your time or his. He's just going to say it the way it is. And if you can't handle that, well then, find somebody else who jives you a little bit better. Yeah, but I love to hear from that guy. He's amazing.
Yeah. So what does the next maybe year look like for Sully and Nerds Unite?
I'm continuing to build the brand. Streaming is going to be a big part of what I do. I love the interaction with people, and I miss the cons desperately because of it. Being able to be here and have a direct connection with people again fuels me. I'm going to go back and be more pumped than ever for what I'm working on. Yeah. But I'm going to continue to build the Nerds Unite brand through streaming, podcasting with my brother on Movie Retakes, which is a blast. I'm having a lot of fun getting to hang with my actual brother, who I hardly ever see. I'm going to continue to work on my art, my stickers, my NFTs, and cons. Mm-hmm. The cons are coming back, and I'm so excited about. WonderCon has been almost like pre-COVID feel.
Almost.
The masks are still there on the floor, and it's a little lighter. Not all the big companies are here. But I think as we get to San Diego, and then on later to we got Emerald City Comic-Con, and then New York Comic-Con, which are the big ones for me. I'll have to skip New York Comic-Con this year because, and I'm excited about this, TwitchCon. I've never been before. I'm going to try to go this year, and making those new connections. Like, I really, really want to work with more companies. I've got several meetings that I've had here and several phone calls I'm having to do some work on my streams with other companies in the industry to share things, possibly work on collabs, things like that, to get more Nerds Unite merch out there. And while it's a slow roll, I'm a one-man army. I can only do so much. I think if I can make those things happen, that this year and the next two are going to be really big for me, and maybe could set me up for that success we were talking about earlier, and the fact that I can just continue to do this for the rest of my life, which would be the dream. I know Steve and I used to talk about it. If we could just travel to cons and that was it, that would be the dream. And I'm close to the finish line on that. Speaking of Steve, any possible return for NerdFu? Maybe. We both have taken a few years off from NerdFu. We both, our lives have changed dramatically from those days and from pre-COVID. But I just saw earlier this week, because we don't chat too much anymore, I just saw he was wearing his NerdFu hat, and he did a tweet, and he said, getting serious NerdFu vibes today. Yeah. So maybe that was his way of calling out and saying, hey, Sully, you ready to do a little something? So maybe. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think it would be fun, if nothing else, just to have a one-off episode and see if we both have that passion for it still. That'd be incredible. Yeah. I love podcasting. Yeah. And that was a very different vibe than Movie Retakes, where we very much do a lot of research and preparation for it. Mm-hmm. That was, we did some notes, and then we just chatted. Yeah. And that's where great things like porch tuna came from. So. Awesome. Well, Sully, it's been awesome having you on. I look forward to our next conversation. Yeah. Is there anything else that we may have missed that you'd like our audience to know about? Yeah, just if you guys heard and you like the content today and you want a little bit of a positive infusion in your life, if you just could help me out by subscribing to my channel on Twitch, or at least just following me on Twitch. Subscribing has money associated with it, but following's free. Come on over. I'm CS Sully. That's CSSULLY on Twitch. And then on Twitter and Instagram, that is also my handle, CSSULLY. And just know that if you support me with just a like or a follow, that is helpful. Help to get those numbers up. But if you want to come by, I do on my streams, every single time I stream, I give away either NFTs, stickers, or on Fridays we play the box game where people have a chance to win things like fig pins and Funko Pops and mystery minis and pop sockets, and the list goes on and on. I've given away probably 300 or 400 prizes in the last 2 years. And you can ask anybody if you come in the chat, has anybody here won? And they'll all raise their hand and tell you what they got. So I like to give back. And while it's not the most expensive stuff in the world, sometimes it can be. So if that's a little incentive for you to come by and hang out, please do.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
It's been awesome seeing you again, seeing you in person.
Yeah.
And I hope I wish for all the success for you, because
I really appreciate it.
I mean, not only for me personally, because I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm glad I can call you a friend, but for all the stuff, all the things you've provided for me, and also you provided for a lot of the pop culture fans out there. I'll say a big thank you on behalf of them.
I appreciate it. And anybody else that is out there is thinking about getting into any of this, I'm on Twitter. Hit me up. I respond to pretty much everybody, and I'm happy to help you out with what I can.
Awesome. Well, that's it for this in-person interview at the WonderCon 2022. Thanks for listening to the Hall 8 Show podcast. And if you like what you've listened to so far, and you've liked a lot of the episodes we had in the past, please give us a rating, hopefully 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and share this episode using the hashtag Hall 8 Show. So peace, cheers, and talk to you later. Bye.
Nerds Unite.
Nerds Unite. All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.